Russia carried out its third ballistic missile attack on Kyiv this month, but most of them are apparently shot down on approach, the city's military administration said on Sunday. Residents in the Ukrainian capital were inspecting the crater caused by what's believed to be a North Korean missile. Kyiv officials said there were no immediate reports of casualties in the capital. Russia and Ukraine accuse each other of striking civilian infrastructure in the war, and both deny doing so. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Saturday his troops had strengthened positions in Russia's Kursk region, nearly 2 weeks into their incursion. He called for bold decisions by Kyiv's allies to allow long-range strikes. These Ukrainian soldiers are conducting drills across the border from Kursk, where Ukraine says it has seized more than 80 settlements over 444 square miles since October 6th. It's the biggest invasion of Russia since World War II. Against the backdrop of that incursion, Belarus's president, a staunch ally of Russia's Vladimir Putin, spoke of a tense standoff along his country's border with Ukraine on Sunday. President Alexander Lukashenko said Ukraine had stationed more than 120,000 troops along that border, and Minsk had deployed nearly a third of its armed forces there. Russia denied a report that Ukraine's Kursk attack had derailed indirect talks with Kyiv on halting strikes on energy and power targets. A spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry denied those talks had been going on, saying no one broke anything off because there was nothing to break off. She was responding to a report in the Washington Post on Saturday that Ukraine and Russia were planning to send delegations to Qatar this month to negotiate a landmark agreement on halting strikes on critical civilian infrastructure.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed in Tel Aviv Sunday, a visit aimed at intensifying diplomatic pressure to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and end the bloodshed between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas. But just hours after he landed, Hamas raised doubts about the mission, accusing Israel of undermining his efforts. This is Blinken's 9th trip to the region since the war began in October. According to a senior State Department official, Blinken plans to meet with senior Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, on Monday, before continuing on to Egypt. Netanyahu addressed negotiations at the start of a cabinet meeting on Sunday, saying, "There are things we can be flexible on, and there are things that we cannot be flexible on, which we will insist on. We know how to distinguish between the two very well." His comments come as Israel is engaged in complex talks for the return of its hostages held in Gaza. A senior Biden administration official said the situation was now at an inflection point. The mediating countries, Qatar, the United States, and Egypt, have so far failed to narrow enough differences to reach an agreement in months of on-off negotiations. Meanwhile, violence continued unabated in Gaza on Sunday, as Israeli strikes killed at least 21 people, according to Palestinian.
This campaign is about a recognition that, frankly, over the last several years, there's been this kind of perversion that has taken place, I think, which is to suggest that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, when what we know is the real and true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what we see as strength. We know what strength looks like. That's what strength looks like. Anybody who's about beating down other people is a coward. Let's build community. Let's reinforce community. You all as volunteers, what you know, and we're going to spread the word, is how you can look at the face of a perfect stranger and see in their face a neighbor. That we see in each other our connection, our interdependence, what we see in each other, which fortifies and reinforces that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. That's what this campaign is about. Yes, it is about winning, and we will win. And we will win. And we will win.
Japan is seeking a $4.7 billion valuation for Tokyo Metro in what will be the country's biggest listing in 6 years. That's according to 3 sources who spoke to Reuters that say it could happen by the end of October. Tokyo Metro is the larger of the city's 2 subway operators and a major piece of its vast rail network. Its history stretches back over a century. It opened Japan's first subway line in 1927 between Ueno and Asakusa, now a popular tourist spot. The national government and the city jointly own 100% of the operator. A source said they plan to arrange a meeting of brokerages within a week for a briefing on the IPO, and the governments expect to receive approval for the listing as soon as mid-September. With half the company to be sold, the valuation could raise nearly $2.4 billion, becoming the largest IPO in Japan since SoftBank listed its wireless unit in 2018. The central government plans to use the funds raised from selling its half to repay reconstruction bonds issued following the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. In response to a request for comment, Tokyo's government said the timing of the sale is under discussion and is not decided, while Tokyo Metro said it would not comment on the progress of the listing.
Of Hollywood's most famous exes live surprisingly similar lives. In the spring of 2022, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp captured the world's attention during their intense 6-week defamation trial in Fairfax County, Virginia. The verdict heavily favored Depp, awarding him $10 million in compensatory damages and $5 million in punitive damages. Despite this, the public fascination continued, leading to a Netflix documentary about the case. Post-trial, both stars chose to live quietly in Europe. Amber Heard moved to Spain with her daughter Una Page for privacy and a fresh start. Initially settling in Mallorca, they later moved to Madrid. In May 2023, Heard, fluent in Spanish, expressed her love for the country and her excitement about returning to work and filming. Johnny Depp, meanwhile, relocated to England. After winning $15 million in the trial, which settled at $1 million, he donated the entire amount to charity. Depp now enjoys a quiet life in Somerset, England, filled with painting, music, and occasional filmmaking. He shared with Somerset Life, "I have various houses in various places, and they all mean something special to me." Amber Heard returned to the big screen in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in 2023, despite fans' mixed reactions. Producer Peter Safran dismissed the idea of removing her due to fan pressure, stating, "You gotta do what's best for the movie." Unfortunately, the film didn't perform as well as its predecessor, with critics calling it stale and void of all originality. Johnny Depp, on the other hand, immersed himself in his creative passions. He toured Europe with his band, the Hollywood Vampires, and starred in the historical drama John du Barry as King Louis XV. His artwork exhibitions earned him millions, with one in London bringing in over $3.6 million within hours. In the aftermath of their highly publicized legal battle, both Amber Heard and Johnny Depp have embraced quieter lives in Europe, focusing on their creative endeavors. Despite their tumultuous past, it seems they have found a way to move forward in remarkably similar ways.
Japan's Seven & I said Monday it has received a preliminary takeover offer. The bid for the 7-Eleven owner comes from Canada's Alimentation Couche-Tard. The update sent shares of the Tokyo-listed company surging almost 23% and valued 7 & I at around $38 billion. Couche-Tard operates Circle K convenience stores and is valued at around $58 billion. 7 & I said it has formed a special committee to review the proposal. It added no decision has been made by either that committee or its board of directors. Couche-Tard did not immediately respond to a request for comment outside of its usual working hours. A source close to the deal said talks are at a very early stage. A buyout of 7 & I would be the biggest purchase of a Japanese company by an overseas firm. One analyst said it shows investors have become more attracted to the country's once ignored assets. Japan was home to one of the world's best performing stocks last year, while this year the Nikkei index has hit a series of record highs as investors cheered corporate governance reform.
ich bin mir recht sicher, dass...
Ja.